All right, everybody, what's going on? Welcome to today's edition of Swag Talk, the show we cover the swag inside and out. Of course, I am your tour guide around the swag. C. Wells coming at you, and we are coming to the completion of our swag tour, the 12 team previews. We have one more after this. Today, we talk Texas Southern Tigers. And tomorrow, and Monday, most likely, I'll drop my UAPB video. So we'll be done with those, and then we'll get ready for week 0 on Wednesday. So football is here. It's football season, man. Thank goodness, the talking and prognosticating and predicting and guessing and hoping and wishing is almost over, and it's almost time for the rubber to meet the road. So, with that being said, man, won't y'all please go ahead and check out my socials? They're on the screen. You can check out my Instagram, Swag Talk, Twitter, Swag Talk 76, Facebook, Swag Talk. Like the channel if you haven't done so already. Like the video, excuse me, if you haven't done so already. Subscribe to the channel. And hit that notification bell so you can be alerted to videos that I drop at any time. I keep a Wednesday, Sunday schedule, but from time to time I might drop a video off of that schedule. So don't miss out on anything by hitting that notification bell. So with that being said, man, let's jump right into this, man. Let's not waste no time. We're gonna talk about TSU, and we're gonna start by talking about their 2021 season. And this was a season where this team kind of turned the corner. 2019 they didn't win a game. 2020, the spring of 2021, they still didn't have that much success. They did pick up a victory off the field because their game against Alcorn was canceled, forfeited, I should say. So they gave them their first victory in quite some time, but their first on the field victory actually came in 2022. And they would, in 2021, they picked up their first on the field victory in a couple of years when they beat North American University. So they opened up their season with a 40-17 loss to Prairie View. Then they lost to Baylor 66-7. They lost to Rice 48-34. In this game, Andrew Body kind of came in relief, and the offense was kind of off and running after that point. They would defeat North American by a score of 69-0. They would beat Southern 35-31. They lost to Grambling 34-20. They lost to Alcorn 44-27. They beat Pine Bluff 59-17. They lost to Jackson State 41-21. They lost to Alabama A&M 52-49. And they lost to Alabama State by a score of 24-21. So the offense kind of came together. The running game picked up. The receivers were on point. Defensively, they still, weren't really getting the stops that they needed. But this team turned the corner, and they finished at a 3-8 record with a 2-6 conference record, and set the sights for a bigger 2022, which a lot of people are very high on this team. And I'll give my thoughts on that in a few. But looking at the stats of this past season, this team really turned the corner offensively. They were second in the league in scoring offense at 29 points per game. They had 39 touchdowns, 6 field goals, 38 extra points on the season, giving them 290 points. That does not include the North American game. Those games, those stats did not count officially. So that's 69 points off of their scoring margin, which would have definitely boosted that margin even higher. Scoring defense, they were last in the league at 39.7 points per game. So the defense was giving up almost 40 points a game, even though the offense was scoring almost 30. Just that's tough to win, no matter how explosive your offense is. If your defense is giving up more points, it's going to be tough. 53 touchdowns on the season, 10 field goals, 47 extra points, 1 2-point conversion allowed for the Tigers defense, giving the opponents 397 total points on the season. Total offense, they were second in the league at 427.7 yards per game. They scored 38 offensive touchdowns, averaged 6.3 yards per play, which tied for the league lead. So, like I said, this offense could get it done in a lot of different ways. And to some people, this may be a surprise hearing these numbers, but I've been looking at these numbers for a while, and you really realize how far this offense came over the course of the season. Total defense, they were last in the league at 499.7 yards per game. They allowed 6.6 yards per play, which would tie for the league lead. Ironically, the league lead in Ironically, they were tied with Alabama A&M for the league lead in points, yards per play on offense, and defensively they were tied with Alabama A&M for yards per play allowed on defense at 6.6. So both of these teams had great offenses. They both had bad defenses, and that led to a tremendous shootout that they had last season. So they allowed 6.6 yards per play, as I said, as a defense. They were second in the league in rushing offense at 185.8 yards per game. They averaged 5 yards per carry, which led the league. They had 23 touchdowns, which also led the league. Um, Defensively, they were last in the league in rushing defense. They allowed 223 yards per game, 27 touchdowns. They allowed 5.4 yards per carry, which would be the second most behind Alabama A&M in that category. Offensively, passing wise, they were third in the league with 241.9 yards per game, 15 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, completing 57.6% of their passes, which ranked them at seventh in that category. Defensively, they were 11th in the league against the pass, 275 yards per game, 21 touchdowns allowed, 8 interceptions. The opponents completed 66% of their passes, which was the highest percentage in the league by almost 3%. Just really, defense really struggled on all aspects on the season. Kickoff returns, they were ninth in the league at 17.2 yards per return. Punt returns, they were third in the league with a 11.8 yard per game, yard per return average. Kicking, on kickoffs, they were third in the league with an average of 57.5 yards per kick and a net average of 39.1 yards per kickoff. After returns were factored in by the opponents, they had 18 touchbacks on the season, which was third most in the league. Field goals, they were 11th in the league at 6 of 10 for 60%. Extra points, they were second in the league at 38 of 39 for 97.4%. Punting, this team was seventh in the league with a 36.3 yard per punt average, 2.5 yards per return on kickoff returns by the coverage unit, which was the third least amount, giving them a net average of 33 yards per punt. So they did a really good job of covering punts. Didn't give up a lot of yardage in that aspect, but they gave up so much more yardage during the actual plays. Third in the league in sacks allowed at 19. So this offensive line is also really good. They do a good job of protecting the quarterback. Andrew Bott is a guy who can get out and run, and he can get out and run, and they can make some things happen in that way. So he's a guy who can definitely make some things happen with his legs. But the offense is very, very capable. Defensively, they registered 17 sacks on the season, giving them a ranking of 10th. Interceptions, they were eighth in the league, at 3.9 yards per return per interception return. Given and 8 interceptions on the season. Conversions, they converted 20.1 first downs per game, which was third in the league. Defensively, they allowed the most first downs per game at 25.7. Third down conversions on offense, they were 8th in the league, 49 of 132, 37.1%. I think that's one of the places that you kind of see the youth on this team. They did not always, convert those key third downs, and that hurt them, at times, knowing that if you don't convert or you don't score, that your defense is gonna allow the opponent to have success. So this was one of those ways that they had to carry the team a lot. Also, the team fumbled the ball 12 times on the season, giving them a total of 16 turnovers on the season. Defensively, they allowed 17 turnovers, so they were +1, they were -1 in turnover ratio. I just wanted to throw that out there. Defensively, they allowed a 41.9% completion rate on third down, 57 of 136. That was 8th place in the league. Fourth down conversions, they were 8th place as an offense, 8 of 21 for 38.1%. Defensive fourth down conversions, they were 11th in the league with 71%. allowed 15 to 21 penalties. This Texas Southern was penalized an average of 56.9 yards per game, a total of 63 penalties on the season. That put them at sixth place in the league. The opponents were penalized 65 times for an average of 56.4 yards per game. That was seventh in the league. So you could see the penalties were pretty even on both sides. Neither team, them or their opponents, really were penalized heavily. So they, they made some mistakes with penalties, but for the most part, they did not commit that many. Red zone offense, they were fourth in the league, 36 of 44 for 81%. They had 30 touchdowns on the season, 20 rushing touchdowns, 7 passing, 6 of 6 on field goals, 5 fumbles, and 3 turnovers on downs. So they turned the ball over 8 times, basically in the red zone. They were actually second in the league in red zone defense. They allowed the opponents to get in the red zone 55 times, which was the second most on the season. But the opponents converted 76% of the time in the red zone. So they got their share of they had their share of success. Not a lot, but some bits and pieces of success in the red zone. 76%, as I said, 42 of 55. They allowed 35 touchdowns, 22 rushing, 13 passing. Opponents were 7 of 12 on field goals, and they turned the ball over 6 times, 4 fumbles, and 2 interceptions in the red zone. Time of possession, Texas Southern was last in the league with a 25 minute and 13 second per game time of possession. So obviously with the offense that they had and the defense that allowed opponents to possess the ball for a while and move the ball, your time of possession is not going to be that great. But the offense was probably almost close, was close to near championship caliber. Defensively, this defense left a lot to be desired. So you can see where things are going to have to change for this team moving on to 2022. Looking at the individual stats, Andrew Body, the quarterback, was the leading rusher. He had 88 carries for 642 yards. He averaged 6.6 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. LaDarius Owens, 83 carries, 655 yards. 624 yards net, 7.5 yards per carry and 5 touchdowns. Corey Howard, 38 carries, 21 yards, 5.8 yards per carry, 7 touchdowns to lead the team. Kevin Harris, 64 carries, 168 yards, 2.8 yards per carry, and 2 touchdowns. Andrew Body was the leading passer. He was 139 of 237 for 58.6%, 11 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. Jalen Brown, 38 of 69 for 55%, 395 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. Receiving, Keelan Davis, 47 catches, 893 yards, 19 yards per catch, and 2 touchdowns. Jaron Johnson, 32 catches, 467 yards, 14.5 yards per catch, and 3 touchdowns. Jonathan Giles, 38 catches, 375 yards, 9.8 yards per catch, and 6 touchdowns. Savion Sims, 12 catches, 183 yards, 15.2 yards per catch. Derek Moulton, 8 catches, 125 yards, 15.6 yards per catch, and 2 touchdowns. LaDarius Owens, 13 catches, 91 yards, a 7-yard average. The leading tackler on the season was Tariq Cooper. He had 62 total tackles. Tyler Martinez, 44. Isaiah Hamilton, 41. Tim Walton, 39. Julian Marcantel, 38. Josh Murray, 38 tackles for loss. Tim Walton, 7.5. Isaiah Hamilton, 6. Martinez, 5.5. Badajoe, 5. Cooper, 4.5. Sacks. Martinez and Badajoe tied for 3.5 sacks on the season. Anderson, 2. Frazier, 2 interceptions. Hamilton had 2 interceptions. Tariq Cooper had 2 interceptions. And they had a few guys after that with 1 apiece. Moving on to special teams, Evan Sawyer was the punter. He had 48 punts for a 1,779 yard average. 1,779 yards on punts for an average of 38.6 yards per punt, along with 63 on the season and 2 touchbacks, 16 punts fair, caught 11 punts inside the 20 and 3 50-plus yard punts. Rick Garcia was 6 of 10 on the season on field goals for 60%. He was 2 of 2 from 20 to 29 yards, 3 of 3 from 30 to 39 yards, and 1 of 3 from 40 to 49 yards, and 0 for 2 for 50 plus. The long on the season was 45. Kickoffs, Garcia, 106 kicks, 6,076 yards, 57.3 yard per kick average, 34 touchbacks on the season. Returns, punt returns, Jonathan Giles had 8 returns for 99 yards, 12.3 yard average. LaDarius Owens, 16 kickoff returns to lead the team for 370 yards, 23.1 yard average. Kevin Harris, 6 returns, 115 yards, 19.3 yard per return average. So, like I said, this team was basically, they were a mixed bag. I mean, offensively, they were more than capable of winning games. Defensively, they left a lot to be desired. So, coming into 2022, the story pretty much writes itself. The offense, at this point, everybody knows Andrew Body. If everybody doesn't know LaDarius Owens, then they should. A guy like Corey Howard is another guy that you should know. Those receivers have talent and size, but defensively is gonna tell the tale. So let's look at the schedule for this season first and foremost, and then we'll give my thoughts on the season. They open up this season with a September 3rd game at Prairie View in the Labor Day Classic. September 10th, they're at North Texas. September 17th, they're on the road in Arlington against Southern. September 24th, they're at UTSA in San Antonio. October 1st is their first home game of the season against Alabama State. October 8th, they're back on the road at Arkansas Pine Bluff. October 22nd, after a bye week, they're on the road again at Alcorn. October 29th, they host Lincoln University, California for homecoming. November 5th, they're at home against Jackson State. November 12th, they're at home against Grambling. And November 19th, they close out their schedule and their season on the road in Huntsville against Alabama A&M. So looking at these games, the schedule, a lot of road games. Fortunately for them, their first month of the season is all away from home, but all those games are in Texas. Prairie View's a hop, skip, and a jump away. They're going to North Texas twice, the Dallas-Fort Worth area twice, and then San Antonio. So 4 games away from home, but no long trips. Still 2 very important games in that time span in conference play, and 2 FBS games in that span. The Alabama State game at home is a big game for your home opener. Alabama State's gonna be a tough opponent. At least that's where we figuring right now. Sitting here at almost at the start of the season, we'll know about Alabama State a bit in about a week or so. Alcorn is a tough road game. Pine Bluff, I think Pine Bluff is probably, to me, the one team in the league right now that I can pretty much say most teams are, would be favored against. I don't really think they're gonna get out of the cellar. So that's a very important game to win. Your first 5 games are going to be tough, and you go to Alcorn after a bye week. So not a lot of wiggle room in the schedule. At home against Lincoln University is a good homecoming game. You need dubs at any point, so you definitely can use a game like that. I'm not a fan of a game like that, but you're trying to build a program and you're trying to win games. So a winnable game can definitely help you in that. A lot of people are circling that Jackson State game. I'm looking forward to it, as a fan. I think it can be a nice little chess match, offense against defense, but you really don't know what his team is going to be record-wise coming into this game. So that's what makes it a tougher game to look at on the schedule in terms of wins and losses. And then you close out at home against Grambling and at Alabama A&M, 2 games that are again not going to be easy. This team has to, they don't have they have 2, they have 3 SWAC road games, and they're a mixed bag in terms of difficulty. But we'll talk about my thoughts on this schedule, wins and losses and everything in a second. looking at the team itself, like I said, offensively, you know what you're getting from this team. You know you're getting ooh, sorry, I put up the wrong thing. Let me fix myself. Offensively, you know what you're getting. You're getting a very talented quarterback, a young guy who's still learning to be a college quarterback. So you're hoping that he takes another step this season and develops the consistency and increases his accuracy as he comes into the season as the guy. He knows what he has to do, and I know he's been working hard, to improve himself on the season. So that's a dual threat weapon. You have three backs who can tote the load for you, two really good backs. So your top four rushers return. So the run game, which finished second in the league, is gonna still be there. Your offensive line is still solid. You have all conference guy on the line. You have a couple other guys who are very solid linemen to help this offense out. The receiving core, you do lose two of your top 5 or 6 receivers, but you still have a lot of guys on this roster who can fill those spots. You have a blend of size and some smaller guys, with some speed, but you're gonna have to find, that go-to guy this season to take over. So that to me, that would be the key. I would think they would lean more on Jaron Johnson as the guy to get that done this season. So looking forward to seeing what this passing game can do. The run game is going to be I think the run game will settle the passing game. So that's something that I really see happening at this point. Um, Defensively is that's where everything to me is gonna have to improve. Looking at the numbers from last season, you were last or next to last in pretty much all the major categories. So you know that you have to improve that defense. Has to be at least a top 5, top 6 defense for you to have the success that you want. With the offense that you have, you're gonna move the ball and you're gonna score points against most defenses. If your defense is not stopping anybody, you're gonna get in a lot of shootouts, and those games can go either way. Or if your offense doesn't get a big play and the other team can score, you're gonna find yourself falling behind. So defensively, especially the run game, they allowed over 200 yards per game. So you definitely want to see that cut, by a big margin. The passing defense, you kind of want to see that improve. You want to definitely decrease that passing percentage, completion percentage, and your pass rush has to improve. You didn't register a lot of sacks, and sacks aren't the end all be all, but pressure itself can help your secondary. You got a guy like Isaiah Hamilton back there who can definitely make some plays on the ball. If you have your linemen like Tyler Martinez and D. Anderson, those are guys I'm looking to step up and have a huge season this season for this defense to get better. Tariq Cooper is a monster at linebacker. He's an all swag guy. So you do have talent on that defense. They have to gel and they have to make plays. They have to, really get those stops that the offense needs to get the ball back. And they have to be physical at the point of attack and, really stop that run game. And that can help you stop passing games. So the talent is there. They brought in a lot of guys. They brought in some transfers. They have, like I said, they have a ton of receivers coming back. They have some really talented guys at all positions. But it's gonna be make or break by the defense. If the defense can improve and put themselves, in a top 6 or 7, I won't even say 5, in a top 6 or 7 portion of the league, that's about average. This team can probably win six games or so. The first 2 games in the conference are make or break. Opening up at Prairie View is a huge game. Like I said, everybody this season feels like they have a shot at the division. So playing and winning that game early sets the tone for your season. A loss there makes the Southern game even more important. You have to, one way or another, come out of that 2-game stretch at 1-1 or better. So either 1-1 or 2-0 in those first 2 conference games. If you come out 0-2, then it's going to be downhill from there. I mean, you're facing North Texas and UTSA in between those games. So you don't have a lot of um, room for making up ground if you lose a game. So if you lose that first game, momentum can shift against you. The key to this team is going to be consistency and being able to handle any success that they gain and being able to handle being viewed as a team on the rise and not a team that is down and found some wins. So to take that next step, and it's a step-by-step process to becoming a division contender and a division champ. Some teams can go from A to B, which A is in this case is the bottom, to B to the top. But most teams have to go, with the incremental steps. This team has the offense to take that jump. Like I said, it all hinges on the defense, and you're facing a couple of you're facing um, 2 teams who have the potential to be good on offense. You have the edge probably in both of these games offensively, but I feel like defensively, both of those teams have the edge on you. So it's a wash in that sense. But those 2 games are gonna make or break the early portion of the season. Like I said, the Alabama State game is a big game for your first home game of the season. Alabama State at this point could be playing very well, especially offensively. On the defense has been solid, and I still feel like they will be solid. On Alabama State with a good offense is going to be a tough team to beat. So that's a tough first game at home. The Pine Bluff game is a winnable game. That is to me one of their 2 for sure wins on the season. The Lincoln game should definitely be a win. So you're sitting at 2 right there. Alcorn is going to be tough on the road. It's tough to win in Norman. You had a great chance against Alcorn, but you turned the ball over a few times last year and shot yourself in the foot a bit too much. Alcorn's going through some change, but I think Alcorn's going to be tough. So that's an up in the air game. That JSU game, like I said, a lot of people are circling that game. You got Shador Sanders against Andrew Body. LaDarius Owens had a huge game running the ball against JSU last year, like 170, I believe, on the ground. They had probably the best rushing attack against JSU all season last year. So there's a lot of interest in that game in terms of offenses showcase. But again, defense is going to have to pull that weight. That JSU offense is going up against that TSU defense. That defense, I've said it multiple times, they have to improve. And that's going to honestly probably be the key to the season. Grambling at home is a game that can, depending, like I said, we don't know a lot about Grambling. They can be a really solid team at this point, or they can be a mid-range team at this point. I don't think they'll be lower than that. But this can be a game that can determine the division at this point, or it can be a game that just is, a game. The Alabama A&M game, I expect another shootout. Maybe not as crazy as last season, but I think it will be another shootout. So looking at the schedule, there are like I'm trying to see how to say this because I feel like this team is going to be a lot better. I don't know how much better the record will be. So don't look at it like I'm saying if they win X amount of games that they're good or bad. I mean, obviously, the saying is you are what your record is, but in this case, your record may not fully indicate who you are. The schedule is not tough, but like I said, those first 5 games are not going to be easy. That you do have your other you do have a couple other tough stretches, but you're going to have to steal some wins somewhere along the line. I mean, like I said, you beat Southern last year, so that's a step up, but that doesn't mean you're going to beat anybody like that this season. But I think that this team will win some games that they probably shouldn't. So I'm gonna predict this team to finish at 5-6. I can see a window for 6 or 7 wins Just looking through the schedule. Like I said, those first two conference games are the key to the season. If you win both of those games, I can honestly see you winning the bulk of your games if you can win those first two games. I can because other than the FBS games, you have only one other game that I consider a certain loss, and that's JSU. So just that's three. That's three losses sitting there. I mean, that doesn't say that this team can't go out and win these FBS games, but just sitting here on paper right now, you're looking at that's three, and if they can steal some of those other games, then a 7-4 season is in the cards. It's gonna all hinge on those first two conference games. How those games go is gonna determine how this season goes. If they go 1-1 in those games, they can still, find a way to win 6 games, or maybe even 5 with a JSU upset. But excuse me, if they 6 games or maybe even 7 with a JSU upset. If they go 0-2 in those games, then I see 5-6 at best. But I think this team is going to be they're going to be improved. So I'm saying 5-6, but 6-5 or 7-4 is definitely possible if some things fall their way. Knowing the division the way it is, 6-7-4 can equal like a 5. Can equal like a that would be like a 6-2 record. So that's enough for a division championship. So anything could happen. If they finish 6-5, 7-4, they're gonna find themselves in the thick of the division. 5-4, 6-5, 5-6, you can still find yourself in the mix depending on how things shake out because of where the division is. But this is gonna be a team that's very exciting on offense. Defense is a work in progress, and we'll find out what's what on week 1. So that's gonna do it for our TSU preview. We'll talk Pine Bluff on our next show. And then Wednesday is our week 0 preview. So join us for all the football action. Swag Smoke live on Thursdays as usual. And that's going to do it for us. So with that being said, I'm C Wells signing out. Hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend, and we'll catch you on the rebound. Peace.